For the quartile, we're going to look at the interquartile range. What that means, this one for the range means I'm going to take the difference of Q1 minus Q2. I'm sorry, Q3 minus Q1. So the range is, most of the time when we talk about range, we talk about the highest values minus the lowest value. Sorry, I cannot write. Okay, so that's another thing. So what I want you to do is that all the assignment I'm asking you to do for quartile, use your calculator. Have it ready. I'm not going to ask you to do it by hand, okay, just to save some time. So to find the interquartile range, we're going to take Q3 minus Q1. What is the interquartile range tell us? It's going to tell you something about the middle number. What it does is kind of tell you, it will tell you how far the middle number that would be vary. So let's review what we did the last time. Okay, so let's talk about, let's do some example with that, and then we can do the interpretation, which is, I think, is make more sense. So last problem, we have Q1 is 10 and Q3 is 18. So if we want to find the range, that means Q3 take away Q1, or 18 minus 10 would give you 8. Okay, what this means is that, remember the last time we talked about test score. Okay, so what this values mean, the range means the test score in the middle portion, or the median that we talk about, vary by at most 8 points. What that means is, if you're gonna compare with the median, the highest, the furthest you can get is 8 points. You cannot get higher than that. So that is sometimes when we talk about business, they have different locations, right? And then they decide to shut down one of the locations. The reason they decide which one to shut down is based on sale, on the profits. They calculate that, and like, this location, if I compare with the average, with the goal that we want, now this location is not making any profit, so I'm going to shut this down. So those give you an idea, like, okay, if I continue with this, I'm going to lose profit. So those are the things that we'll look at, okay? So this one just kind of tell you where the middle portion, or the medians, in this case, we talk the middle portion of the Q2. For this one, it's pretty simple. If you can find Q3 and Q1, you subtract and you got the values, okay? One of the assignments that I want to go over for Khan Academy, I feel like I just want to go over because it's hard for you. So it's easy to find the range, Q3 minus Q1. But Khan Academy assignment that you're going to work on today is just the way that they present the data to you. It's kind of like strange, or at least it's like something that you already learned, but you may forgot. So I want to go over some of the data that will present to you. This is one thing that you need to know for your final exam anyway, so hopefully you pay attention. And remember, this is the dot plot, okay? This represent, the dot represent the values that you have. So for example, this is 7. Then for 9, I have 2 of those. For 10, I have 3 of those. Okay, so that's how I can use the data to figure out the interquartile range. Okay, and then I have 11, which is 1. I have 2, 12, and I have 1, 14. So instead of give you a list of data, they give you a dot plot. Pretty much saying the same thing. So now I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that means 7, 12. So if I will end up with 10 and 10, to find the Q2, I'm looking for the median, which is the middle number. In this case, the two number in the middle is 10. So that's tell me 10 is Q2. Okay. And then what I would do is the rest of these. Now for this one, I will end up with 12. Q3 is 12. And then Q1 is 9. Because that's the middle number. So to find the interquartile range, I'm taking Q3, which is 12, minus Q1, which is 9. So that would be 3 some. So that's what you can do to find the interquartile range. You need to figure out Q1 and you need to figure out Q3. But before you can do that, you have to figure out Q2 because that's when it split the data into 2 equal portions. Questions for me? Okay, thank you. So when you do this, right, the option is if you can do it by hand, you can list it out if the number is not too many numbers, but you end up with a bunch of numbers, I would use a graphing calculator and do it, okay? So later on, you're going to have one assignment on interquartile range, and you're going to run into data set the way they present like dot plot, stamped, and leaf plot. Those are the things that we need to review, okay? So once we get the data, the last thing that I'm going to cover today is called the box and whisker plot. So it's pretty much like normal. Just think about this. You come up with a number and we'll look at the values. And then another way that we can present the same thing, but instead of say Q1, Q2, Q3, they do a box and whisker plot. So once you figure out Q1, Q2, and Q3, the minimum, the maximum is not too bad to set up the box and whisker plot, okay? So let's say if we have, remember this one is the 15 test score that we did. I'm going to use the same data set so that way we don't have to do a lot of work. It's there, and then we can just use that, okay? So you don't have to worry about figure out what is what. Okay, so let's make the dot plot. So if this is the data, 15 test score. So I'm going to write down what we know that the minimum is 15. We know Q1 is 10. We know Q2 is 15. We know Q3 is 18. And the highest value is 37. How do we know this? It's from the last lesson. We have this data set and this is what we calculate, okay? All right, to do the box and whisker plot, it's not too bad, okay? What I would do is that I'm gonna draw a straight line, okay? What I would do is I'm gonna make 2 dots. This first dot right here is represent the minimum. In this case, I know my minimum is 15. This point right here represents the maximum values, which I know is 37. And now what I would do for the rest is that plot in my Q1, Q2, and Q3. So I'm going to do approximately, you don't really have, so sometimes you run into a problem when they can do the next one is 16, 17, 18. What we can do is we can do approximately, so 10, did I do it wrong? The minimum is not 15, sorry, the minimum is 5, sorry. The minimum is 5. Okay, so the minimum is 5. So I'm going to do another 3 things. So I'm going to do Q1. Okay, so before I do Q1, let's say I'm do 15, Q2, which is somewhere along in the middle. Close, a little bit lower. So that would be, I'm going to plot Q2, which is 15. 10 is a little bit lower right here, which is Q1, which is 10. And then 18 is like pretty kind of closer to Q1. I'm sorry, Q2. So basically what you want to do is kind of plot these points on the number line. Q3 is a little bit closer, so Q3, 18. And the last part you need to do is just make a box around Q1, Q2, and Q3. This is what we call a box and whisker plot. How do we feel about this? It's not too bad, right? We just plot all the numbers. Good. Okay, so the only thing is that we have to figure out the minimum, Q1, Q2, Q3, and the maximum, right? But you have that graphing calculator. You have that Google Sheet to do it for you. I'm not going to ask you to do it by hand. Plug it in. Put in the calculator. They will do it instead of you have to sit there, rearrange everything, and you may miss a values or two. So use your calculator. Use the Google Sheet. Type in all the data sets, right? So the interpretation is going to be the same thing. The same thing as you look Q1 and Q2. The minimum, the lowest value is 5. The highest score is 37. 10, Q2, it just, again, this one is 20% or lower. This one is 50% or lower. This one is 75% or lower. Okay? Or you can say that from the display, you can see about half of the score is between 10 and 18. That's one way to say it. All right? Okay. So let's do another one. So you will do another Khan Academy today. They will give you like this, something like this. They give you a list, okay? And then they kind of give you a bunch of choice. They gave you this, and they're going to ask you which one. So they give you a bunch of box and whisker plot for you to choose from. So to make it easy, I'm going to plug it into my calculator and put in the data. Let's do this together. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to, for the calculator, the step is the same thing, okay? So you're going to hit stat. So I'm going to share the graphing calculator.